Hey guys, it's Natalia and welcome back to another video. So today I'm gonna sit and answer some of your questions. I asked you guys on Instagram to ask me anything like fashion related, just because I get DMs all the time and comments all the time on YouTube, and it's gotten to a point where like I actually can't answer everybody anymore. I like used to, but now it's very overwhelming. So hopefully this is a little bit more helpful in terms of being able to give you answers to things you guys have been asking. So you guys actually asked me some really good questions that I feel like you guys hadn't asked before. So I have a very long list and I don't think I'm gonna be able to get through all of them, but I kind of picked a few out that I thought were interesting and that maybe I hadn't, you know, answered before, because obviously I've done other Q&As and I've answered a lot of questions just in different videos and such. So I want to make sure I'm giving you like different content and different questions and answers and all of that. So I have it separated into 3 different categories, one being fashion school questions, which I get asked a lot, one being more like industry questions about fashion, and some more like fashion business questions, because those are the 3 main categories that I get asked about a lot. So that's kind of the order we're gonna go in. We're gonna start with fashion school questions and then move on to the next. And also, if you want your questions answered in the next Q&A, be sure to follow me on both of my Instagrams, my shop Instagram at Natalia Trevino and my personal at Natalia.Trevino. I kind of usually ask on both, so just follow both and see which one I ask it on. So first things first, where did I go to school? I went to FIT, so I just wanna, you know, preface that so you guys know. And I did the International Fashion Design program for the associate's degree. So that means I did my first year in Italy, in Florence at Moda, and then I did my second year in New York, and I got a 2-year degree, which is called an associate's degree. So just want to preface with all of that before anybody else asks. That is my background in fashion school. Next is, what advice would you give to your younger self about fashion school? I would tell myself that I do not need to be comparing myself to others, and that everybody is so incredibly different that you're not really even able to compare yourself. I think that when I first started, I was like, oh my god, everybody's so much more talented, everybody's so much more artistic, they're so much more conceptual, and like I'm not necessarily. And I thought that that made me like a bad designer, or that I just wasn't, I don't know, up to level with them or whatever. But I've also just come to learn that everybody is meant to be completely different, and like that is what makes fashion design so cool, is that we can all like learn from each other but also be completely different and not even be really competition, because we're like targeting different types of people and all of that. So I don't know, I thought that it was like a very like one street kind of deal and a one path kind of deal for fashion designers, but obviously I've come to learn that everybody's so different and there's so many different paths you can take, and that's like a really cool thing. So don't compare yourself to others. That's something that I really had to learn, but it's definitely one of the most freeing things. The next question that I get asked so much is, can you study fashion and have a brand at the same time? And yes, like you can do anything you want, but I personally wouldn't have done it, because A, if you're in fashion school, like fashion design, you will not have time to like do what I'm doing with my like made to order brand. Like that is nearly impossible. Like if you're getting it manufactured somewhere or whatever, like yeah, you'd probably have more time to manage that, but also it's not really worth doing. I think that you should really enjoy your like education and your school years, because after that your life is just work. So why would you start that earlier? You know what I mean? Like I feel like you should genuinely enjoy that. Obviously you can work and intern and do all those things, but I don't think you should start your business in school. Like I think you should wait till you're graduated and then like go headfirst into it, because you don't want to like half-ass it basically. Next question is, did you learn digital pattern drafting in school? And I did not. I think they do maybe have classes now, but I feel like I just either didn't take them or I just didn't. But I learned through YouTube. I've watched a couple different videos and seen how different people do it, and I know Illustrator really well, which I did learn in school. And honestly, using the Illustrator like measurement tools and stuff like that, it's kind of easy to draft patterns once you like know how a pattern's supposed to like be drafted. It's kind of easy to do it on there digitally, but no, it's not something I learned in school. I learned that on my own. The next question is, did you get any internships, and if so, how? I did have an internship my last semester that I was at FIT. I absolutely loved it too. It was literally the greatest thing ever, and I got so sad when COVID obviously turned it virtual and then I wasn't able to be in person with them anymore. But I interned at Kukulele Shaheen. They are an incredible brand. I got to work directly with the 2 co-founders, with Anthony and Anna. They're really great. I was literally one-on-one with them in their home studio, which is really cool. They do all of these really beautiful custom-made embroidered gowns that have a lot of really cool symbolism and motifs and stuff. So what I did for them was digitize all of those, which is how I got so good at Illustrator. I literally just took all of their ideas. They would kind of give me like different motifs and symbols they liked and just a lot of like inspiration pictures and kind of told me to like put things together. And they sometimes had ideas for things, sometimes didn't, and they just kind of like let me have a lot of really big creative freedom with it in how I thought that the embroidery should look. And it's really, really cool. Obviously I wish I could show you all the work I did for them, but I can't necessarily. But I helped on this collection, which is really cool. So I did some of the embroidery motifs that you see here, which is really fun. But yeah, coolest internship ever. Literally such a great experience. I got to really know them on a personal level, which was really cool, and it was just like everything I could have ever wanted and more. I got that internship through FIT. I did that internship for credit for the school, so that is how I got it, and I would say that's how most people get internships, is through the school. Obviously, if you go to FIT or if you go to like a big name school, like they have so many connections, and that is how I was able to get that internship. The next question is, can you start a brand without going to fashion school? And the answer is yes, you can literally do anything. I don't think that there are certain steps you need in order to become successful in anything, in any career, unless it's like, I don't know, med school or something where you actually need schooling. When it comes to like starting a business or something more creative, I don't think that there's set steps that you need to take to be successful. I would say a lot of the like greatest fashion designers didn't necessarily go to fashion school. A lot of people just learn on their own, and yeah, like I don't think you need fashion school, but I personally like loved it, and obviously it taught me so much, and I was obviously like lucky enough to be able to go because obviously it is a lot of money and not everybody can afford that, but because I was able to, I took that opportunity and it helped me. But I don't think that it's a necessity if like it's gonna put you in debt or like if you can't afford it, you know what I mean? Like I don't think it's worth that necessarily, but to each their own. I wouldn't judge. The next question is it possible to work part-time while at FIT? And the answer is yes. I personally didn't. I had an internship, but I know people that do work when, you know, they need it or whatever. Obviously it's difficult with scheduling and stuff, but not impossible. People do it. So it's like any other college. I feel like most people don't necessarily have time for part-time jobs, but like if you need it, like you will make the time and it will work. And the last fashion school question is, does FIT help you with jobs after an associate's degree? The answer is yes. I don't think that FIT would offer just an associate's degree if they didn't think you could get a job after that. I also think that having FIT on your degree also is already like putting you above so many people, even if like, I would say personally, I don't know if this is legit, so don't take me, you know, whatever, but if you have like a 4-year degree from like, I would say, I don't know, like a regular university in fashion design, and you have a 2-year degree from somewhere like FIT, I feel like if I were hiring somebody, I would maybe go for the FIT people, just because obviously they were just like more immersed in the fashion industry and you probably have more connections, and FIT is just a really, really great school and it's known for that. I don't know, I would take it in the same way as like if you graduated from a normal university versus like Harvard or something. I feel like somebody would definitely go for the Harvard person just because it's known to be better. It's one of those things where you're kind of just paying for the school name, but it actually does benefit you a lot in that aspect. I found that when I was getting an internship, obviously I never got a job through FIT because I work for myself, but when I was getting my internship, a lot of people I interviewed with told me that they preferred FIT kids over like Parsons kids or over like different colleges because we were known to be the best in terms of like work ethic and skills and all of that. So the school name definitely helps a lot, and I think that if you have a good enough portfolio and you present yourself well, you can get a job no matter if you have a degree or not, you know? All right, moving on to industry questions. The first question is, what's something you wish more people knew before becoming a designer? And I thought this was such a good question because I have so many thoughts about this. Obviously, not gonna go on a huge rant, but I wish people knew how much work actually went into it, because I feel like there's a lot of people that blindly are like, I'm gonna be a fashion designer, and then obviously it doesn't work out because not everybody can actually be a fashion designer. But usually the reason why people like drop it or whatever is because they realize how much work it is, and that it's not just like designing pretty clothes. It's not a glamorous lifestyle. Obviously, like I don't necessarily live very glamorously. It's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot more than just pretty clothes and modeling and I don't know, glamorous stuff like that. I think people forget how much like math is involved when it comes to like measurements and proportions and all of that, and like how much like physical labor there is in like sewing and cutting things out and stuff. Like my body's genuinely exhausted after a day of sewing because I'm like up on my feet like cutting things and then like ironing out and then like going back to my sewing machine, going back and forth so much. Like I'm very up on my feet. So I think people just don't realize how much work it is in so many different ways. So I wish people kind of knew that going in, because I think that not a lot of people expect that, and then when they see it, it's like, oh shoot. So yeah, it's a lot of work. I love it, and I think that if you have the right personality for it, and if you're meant for it, you will love it too. But if you're not meant to do it, you will hate it. The next question is, there's so many aspects to achieving sustainability, it's overwhelming. Do you have any tips? And yeah, I think that it's super overwhelming, and I also think that the reason that it's so overwhelming is because there is no right way to do things. There is no definition on what sustainability should be in terms of like a fashion brand. Like there's no set thing like you have to do these things in order to be considered sustainable, because there's a lot of sustainable steps you can take, but it's like what makes a brand fully sustainable, you know? Is it the fabrics they choose? Is it the amount that they're producing? Like what really says it? And I think for me, I just have to remind myself like, A, I'm one person trying to do all these things by myself. B, it's impossible to be 100% sustainable. Like that is just not possible for anyone in any industry. And C, like it's okay if certain things aren't necessarily fully sustainable. Like if you are trying your best in every other aspect, like it's okay. I think for me, the only things that are unsustainable is like where I source like notions, like threads and zippers and all these extra things. Like there aren't ways to get them sustainably necessarily. Like I still buy like threads and zippers from like Joann's, which isn't a sustainable brand, but it's what's available to me. And it's like, I don't think there are many people making sustainable zippers or like things like that. So I don't think you need to be like super overwhelmed with that, or even threads. I get people that ask me about threads all the time. Like, how do you source threads sustainably? I'm like, I don't. Like I probably use polyester threads the most, but it's like, that's what's available. And like, it's not my fault that there's not a better alternative to it, because like, yeah, cotton thread exists, but I would say polyester thread is actually a lot stronger. So it's like, it would be more sustainable to use something that's gonna last longer, even though like the way it's produced is worse than the cotton. You know what I mean? Like there's so many steps to sustainability that as long as you're genuinely thinking it through and you are really doing, you know, your research and putting in the effort to make sure things are, my camera just like stopped there. But anyway, if you're doing it all right and you are, you know, really putting in the research, putting in the effort to make sure that things are being done in a way that is sustainable and that you think is sustainable and that is like attainable to you, then like you're doing it, you know? I think that everybody has different levels of sustainability that they can attain, whether that mean in like their personal life or their brand or whatever, like depending on what's available to them and the resources they have. So as long as you're genuinely trying and you genuinely have that intention, then I think you're good. The next question is, if you could change one thing about the fashion industry, what would it be? There are so many things I would change, but first and foremost, I would definitely change the way things are produced and just like the thought process behind it, because I think we've turned so much to consumerism and just like wanting more and more. And like, I think that fashion can be so fun, and I think that's why people love, you know, buying clothes and playing around with their personal style and stuff. And I think it's so great. It's like such a cool form of self-expression and all, and which is why I'm like in the industry and I love it. But at the same time, it's like we need to really like reel it back and remind ourselves like, okay, there's actual people making these clothes. They need to be treated okay. Like they're the reason you're able to express yourself in this way, and make sure that, you know, we're being environmentally conscious and all these things. Those are like the two main things I wish we could change. Just like that mentality of like remembering where these things are coming from and how they're being made, and then like honoring it and appreciating it, instead of just like being so quick to dispose clothing and just like see it as an object, you know? The next question is, how should existing fashion companies go about improving their sustainability? I think that it's obviously going to take a really long time for these big brands or just brands that are already pre-established to kind of switch to sustainability, because there's a lot of different aspects. First and foremost, I think that they should switch packaging. I think that's one of the easiest things to switch at and make sustainable. So if they could start doing that, that would be great. If they could start going plastic free, that would be fantastic. Secondly, I think they should start reeling back their production and just how much they're producing. I think that there are way too many like micro seasons now in like the fashion year, and I think that companies need to reel it back and kind of be more intentional about what they put out. And then I also think they should obviously look into, you know, the materials they're sourcing, where they're sourcing from, and just kind of go into that. But yeah, I think it's a very long process that is going to take a very long time for brands to really get to, but I think that a little bit at a time goes a long way, because I know that when you do have a big established brand, it's very hard to kind of change everything and revamp everything and reestablish things. So I think it'll be slow, but as long as these brands kind of have a set plan and they're, you know, telling the public like, we plan on doing these things by these years, and they're actually showing progress, then I think that's really good and that's something to support. The next question is, what is the best fabric to choose to make sustainable clothing? And I think that there are a million different ways I could answer this. One, I would say anything that's already made. So like I use a lot of dead stock. I think that's one of the better choices just because it's already there. It's gonna go to waste, so you might as well make use of it. The second best thing would be, you know, to use natural fiber fabrics, but at the same time it's like those are being made new, so it's like it's also doing harm even though it's good because it's biodegradable. You know, there's a lot of different ways, but if you could reuse things or like repurpose fabrics and stuff, I think that's the number one option. Number two would be natural fiber fabrics. The next question is, what's your thought on vegan satin polyester compared to silk? Personally, I'm not vegan, so I would use silk over polyester any day, especially if it's like something that's being made new. Obviously, I know there's ethics behind silk as well. There's like piece silk, and then there's silk that's made unethically in terms of like the silkworms and stuff like that, and it's a whole big thing. But personally, I think it would be better to use like something that's natural that would biodegrade than make more polyester vegan satin. Like I think the word vegan makes you think that it's sustainable, but it's literally just plastic. It's the same thing as vegan leather. I personally would rather use actual leather than vegan leather because vegan leather is straight plastic and it's not as durable. So I feel like, yes, there's like ethics questions in that in terms of, you know, animal cruelty and stuff like that, and that's not something I necessarily want to support. But it's like if you're trying to really think about sustainability, and that meaning something that would last, you know, a very, very long time, like sometimes these animal products last longer and would be more sustainable, but it's like I don't want to necessarily be like, yeah, I support that, you know what I mean? There's like just so many different like ways it can go, but personally, like I'm not necessarily against it. I would say I just don't, I feel like the word vegan just makes the people think it's going to be sustainable, and then it's actually just plastic, so it's actually not that great. So I don't know. Either way, if you want to use you know, vegan leather or vegan silk because you don't want to, you know, support the animal cruelty on the other end of things, like I get that and I wouldn't shame you for that. But if you're also like, I don't want to use plastic, like wouldn't shame you for that either, you know? I can see both sides, and I don't think one is necessarily better than the other, but like that's just my opinion. Now let's move on to the business questions. Number one being, what is the most rewarding thing about your job? I think that the most rewarding thing is getting like pictures back or feedback from customers. I don't think anybody realizes like how happy it makes me to get customer pictures back, because obviously you don't always get pictures back because not everybody necessarily takes pictures and wants that. But whenever I do get pictures back, or just like if somebody leaves me a review, or they just like email me separately to let me know like they love the piece, like that is the most rewarding thing ever. And that just reminds me of like why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it just makes people happy, it makes people feel good about themselves, and like that's all I could ever want. The next question is, what's the most difficult thing about running your brand? I think the most difficult thing is sometimes just doing it all by myself. Like yes, I do have help here and there, but I would say majority of the time I'm still doing a lot of the things by myself, and sometimes it's hard to not have someone to like bounce ideas off of, or ask a question if I'm getting stuck on something, or you know, like not having somebody to just kind of like say things to and like not complain to, but like I don't know, just talk to about things and talk through things with, because obviously there's a lot of things that I will get like frustrated by, and like I just want to vent to somebody who gets it, and obviously nobody necessarily gets it because nobody works and does the same thing I do around here. So sometimes that aspect I think is really difficult, but obviously we've made it through and it's fine. The next question is, how did you come up with your logo? It's actually really funny. I've had this logo idea since I was, I don't know, maybe in middle school, high school, I don't know, but I have a million sketches of it. I would always doodle it on my papers, like all my school papers. I was such a doodler in like high school. It just like helped me concentrate, but I would always write my little like N with the T and the A. Like, I don't know, it was a thing in like elementary school. I had like a friend group that would always try to write our initials, but in a way that they were all put together. And I always loved mine because my initials are NTA, which also happen to be the first three letters of my name, which is kind of fun. But they all fit into the N perfectly because the, you know, in the N you can put the little A, and then you can also put the T. And so I always had that envisioned. I was like, oh, that's so easy to put my entire name into like one little like letter logo thing. So I've had the idea for freaking ever, and the original logo I started with, I made by myself, but I didn't really love it. So I asked one of my friends to help me redesign it, because I feel like if I look at it too long, or if I do it myself, I'm always gonna find something that I hate about it. But if somebody else does it, I'm like, oh my god, that's the greatest thing ever. So I had my friend kind of help me with it, and I gave him all the ideas for it and all my sketches that I had previously made and all my previous attempts of it, and this is what we came up with, which is really fun. So this is what it looks like. I really love it. It's really simple, and the little pattern that it has on that like line, I designed that myself. I made it on Illustrator, and I really like it. There's quite a few little symbols in it, but won't get into that too much. But yeah, that's how I made it. One of my friends helped me out. The next question is, how are you able to prioritize how many things you'll be able to make by a certain date? And I think that this just took me a lot of time to realize how much I'm actually able to produce within a week, and then I can kind of figure that out. At first, I would say within the first 6 months of business, I was just kind of accepting everything I possibly could and trying to get it done as fast as I possibly could, and it really overwhelmed me. But then I kind of learned to only accept as much as I can make, and I think that it just takes time to kind of know yourself and know how long it takes to make a product. Obviously, you get faster and faster as the more you make it, so you just kind of, I don't know, it just takes time to kind of figure that out for yourself. The next question is, what are the problems faced in expanding the fashion business? I think that I am now facing a couple of problems. I've kind of expressed this in some vlogs that I just felt very stuck. I think that one of my problems, or something that I'm kind of coming across, is that I feel like I've, you know, done as much as I could here in Indiana as far as like expanding a fashion business, but I think that a lot of the next steps would be a lot more like in-person things and more events and things like that, where you actually get to, you know, meet people in the industry and, you know, talk to people that get it, and that's just not something I can do here. So that's one of the things that I'm kind of coming across as like, oh, that's one thing that's kind of setting me back a little bit. And the next thing is just finding that balance between hiring people to help you, you know, produce more and help you, you know, expand things, but also like not wanting to spend money on that and wanting to, like, you know, save money and make more money. And like, I still haven't balanced that very well, because half the time I'm like, oh, I could have somebody help me, or I could do it all myself and then not have to pay them. You know what I mean? I'm still kind of figuring that one out. But yeah, there are definitely some, you know, problems there, but nothing that is crazy. I think that I'll probably hit a few more problems or things that I have to, like, you know, overcome later on. But I feel like for now I'm like very minor things. The next question is, have you ever felt unsure about a garment after making it, insecure that maybe a customer won't like it? And yes, all the freaking time, literally all the time. Whenever I'm making a custom order, I get really freaking scared to send that initial email of like, this is what it's looking like so far. Like, please let me know if there's anything you want to change. Like, you can change anything, add anything. Like, I will not be offended. Like, please let me know. Like, I am very much like, please let me know, I will fix it kind of person. And I do get very scared that people won't like things, or that it won't fit well, or that I like measured wrong. Like, I get very insecure about these things, but luckily I've not had that many issues with it. I've maybe had a couple of slight sizing issues on my end of things, but nothing that I wasn't able to fix, or nothing crazy. But yeah, it's definitely very difficult, but I found that majority of my customers have actually been like super nice about it, and they totally understand that like I'm literally 21 and like doing all this by myself, and obviously I'm not the most experienced person in the world, so I will make mistakes, and they've been very nice about it. I've been able to fix everything, so everybody's always, you know, happy in the end. But yeah, definitely get very insecure about that. And the last question that I think kind of goes along with that one is, do you ever get customer complaints? If so, how do you handle them? I have gotten a couple well, I wouldn't say complaints, but you know, if there's like sizing issues or whatever, or somebody, I don't know, has a question about how something was made or whatever, like I try to be as like open about it. If there's like something that needs to be altered, I will, you know, do a free alteration if it was something on my end. But I always try to, you know, work things out with a customer. I try to be very, very open-minded about it, and just very understanding of whatever is going on their end. And I find that by doing so, and by, you know, approaching things kindly, they usually will approach me kindly as well, and kind of be understanding of things on my end. So yeah, I don't really get many complaints necessarily, but if there's any like issues with things, I just, you know, try to be super understanding and try to ask a lot of questions to make sure I really understand what's going on, and then proceed after that. So that is all the questions that I'm gonna answer today. That was a lot, still a lot more I could have answered, but I'm gonna leave it at that for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really love just like sitting and talking with you guys. So yeah, if you want to be part of the next Q&A, follow both of my Instagrams, because I usually ask it on either or both sometimes. So follow those, and subscribe for more if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!